Okay, first topic. I'm gonna have to cut all of that from the individual video because no one's gonna sit
Oh
through
no.
that. Uh, our first topic today is going to be me and Joe are gonna discuss Resident Evil 2, which we've
Oh boy.
recently completed.
Okay, here's the thing about Resident Evil. I think the title for the series sounds awesome, but I know a lot of people who are like, "Oh, Resident Evil's such a dumb name." I think it sounds cool.
Well, it's a
What?
dumb name because in Japan it's called Biohazard, which is
Oh,
more fitting because every entry in the series is about biohazard, like viruses causing
yeah.
zombie
Yeah, but it,
outbreaks.
it makes sense a little bit in two. It makes sense in seven for
Yeah,
sure.
because
Seven
isn't
is the one where in Japan Seven is called Biohazard Resident Evil, but
yeah,
in
because
America it's called Resident Evil Biohazard. But like, there's no biohazards mostly in that game at all. Well, never mind. I guess there
yeah,
are.
there's only like one or two games that are like actually in a house, right? Or
There,
like mansion or
there's
Well,
whatever they're called.
resident
one.
could also mean just a community resident, like residence.
Yeah, some shit like that.
Okay,
Okay.
then you can kind of stretch most of them to fit that, but
But we're talking about specifically Resident Evil 2,
the
The
remake
remake.
the
that came
remake.
out in 2019
Yes.
came out in March, just before Kingdom Hearts 3, so I slept on it for a while. I was waiting
I
for it to go on sale.
I slept on it and then Kingdom Hearts 3 and then I'm like, well, I want some more Japanese bullshit in my life.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind
hey,
of a
look,
problem
Resident
if
Evil
your
2.
game came out around the same time as Kingdom Hearts 3.
It was rough,
Yeah.
and
Which is a shame because this game's great.
this is a really good game. How are we gonna tackle this, Joe?
Well, Resident Evil 2 is a story about um, Claire and Leon. I forget Claire Redfield and Leon Kennedy,
Kennedy, yes,
future star of Resident Evil 4.
yes.
Um, Leon is a newly employed police officer, detective,
He's a police officer,
police
just
officer
just straight up.
for Raccoon City, and Claire is brother to um
She's Chris Redfield's sister, and Chris
yeah,
Redfield is one of the protagonists from Resident Evil 1, and he
Mhm.
works for, in the police office,
Stars.
Stars, which is like their SWAT unit, their
Mhm.
special division.
Yeah. And so Chris has gone missing. His last known location was Raccoon City, so Claire has gone to investigate. And along the way, they run into each other and a horde of zombies. And you, at the beginning of the game, you have to choose to either be Claire or Leon. Your first playthrough is relatively the same for both, with some story differences, and your second playthrough is very different.
So, one thing I wanted to get to with this review is that I actually haven't completed one of the B playthroughs. I completed both of the A's. So, Joe might actually know more about this than I might with the differences, because I'm still going
I think
through
I
it.
also ended up doing A2 by accident.
You did two A's as well?
Yeah, I just went like, Claire, that one, and then I went and did that one.
Um. So you okay? So it's not a B playthrough then, because I started Claire B, and
Yeah.
well, I guess we should back it up. The way the game works is, you have to get the full story. You have to play as both characters, and generally the way it's gonna go for a lot of people is you pick one character to begin with, and then once you complete it, you get access to the other character's B scenario. So if you start with Leon, you get Leon A, which is a easier playthrough, and then you get Claire B, where I started a Claire B run where instead of starting in the beginning of the police station, you start at the back, and your most of the stuff you do in the beginning of the game is in the East Wing as opposed to the West Wing. Mr. X is like immediately there.
Oh god.
It's so terrifying because you get to the middle room and your B playthrough is canonically after the first one. So you get to the main hall.
Actually during, not after.
It's it's during but after. So like it's
Oh, that's right.
concurrent but you start after because
Yeah, yeah.
as soon as you get to the middle to the main hall, Marvin's already dead and he's already a zombie. The main hall is no longer a save point, and in the computer where in the beginning you see that cop and then you go to the hallway and he gets chopped in half. In that hallway in that same computer, you see Mr. X walking down the west hall and he sees a camera and he smashes it. And you're like, "Oh fuck. This is how we're going to start."
Yeah.
So I don't know all about the B playthrough, but I can talk about both characters' A playthroughs because this is enough for me to give the game a rating, and I'm still gonna play it. I'm gonna try to do both of the Bs as well.
Yeah, the game needs to be played 4 times.
Yeah, basically that actually unlocks a true ending as well, so it is actually kind of mandatory to do the 4 playthroughs. Um, let's talk about the game itself. So Resident Evil is a series that I've played. I've only played 2 of them, but I've watched a lot of the others.
I've played 4 and 5. I didn't play 6 and 7.
Okay, I've played
Yeah.
2 now and 7, but it's a series that I've always respected from afar, like a coward. Uh, watch other people get scared for me. Actually, one of my most terrifying childhood memories is my brother and my cousin were playing Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation 2, and I was in the room, and I was kind of behind them, like they were on like a couch or like a bed, and I was somehow behind them. And they get to this cutscene where you run into the first zombie, and they ran out of the room and they locked me in, and I started crying because
Jeez.
I was locked in with the zombie in the video game. It was terrifying. So speaking of terrifying, this game really brings the scares, I think. I've heard some people say that it doesn't. I don't know, man. This game stressed me the fuck out.
I want to say that I felt more stressed than I did like scared.
Okay,
If that makes
fair,
sense.
fair. I might agree, but there was some scares for sure.
It makes you really like go on high alert during the game.
And the game has a really nice pace and flow to the scares because so the game starts and you're exploring the police station, and the police station is really big. It's probably the biggest of the 3 areas that you get to play through. And as you're exploring, you're introduced to zombies, and you're like, okay, they're pretty tough. They're scary because it takes so many bullets to put them down. So you end up in these scenarios where it's like, shit, there are 3 zombies here. That is unbeatable. So you need to really plan it out, and it puts you on high alert. You want to make sure not to waste your items.
Or like even sometimes like you don't even like try to kill the zombies. You're just like, I'm gonna just shoot you to stagger you real quick so I can just like sneak by and go into this door and
I found
get
out
back
after
to-
that that's actually like the pro strat is to
Yeah.
you shoot them in the kneecap, which is a really good stun, and then you run by because it's more ammo efficient to do
And you
that.
can like shoot off their knees too.
That's what I do a lot. I blow off their legs so that way they can't really chase me down or open doors. So as you're going through the station, now you're introduced to a new enemy type called Lickers, and these guys look fucking terrifying, but they can't see; they can only hear. So you have to walk around them, and as you're walking around them, they're on the walls right next to you. So it really is really spooky. And the annoying part is, oh shit, there's a Licker and a zombie in this room, and the zombie can see you, so you have to deal with him. But if you run or shoot, the Licker's gonna come after your ass. And if you're playing Leon, you only have a shotgun to deal with him for the most of the game, and it takes like 5 bullets, and your shotgun carries 4, so you're gonna have to reload in the encounter.
Took me
Like
5 bullets. I would just brain them like with 1 or 2.
then you were getting critical hits. With Claire was a lot easier because she gets a grenade launcher, which fucking decimates them. You get less ammo for it in general, but 2 shots basically kills them.
And you can kill yourself.
Yeah, but I didn't run into that problem ever.
Happy trade-offs.
So now you've explored a lot of the station, you've gotten used to these 2 main enemy types. All of a sudden, motherfucking Mr. X shows up and gives me like an existential breakdown, which is this hulking man in a trench coat and a hat, and he will chase you down through the station, and until you realize that he reacts on movement, and if you slam into doors and shoot enemies, he's gonna zone in on your location from far away. Until you get that, it is like the scariest. It's probably the peak tension of the game. Is those early parts with Mr. X.
And it's interesting because it's almost like a time limit on yourself without being a time limit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah,
And you like essentially depending on how fast you like move determines how fast the time ticks down. and which is almost counterintuitive and makes you like, I gotta get there quick, but I'll alert Mr. X. But there's zombies, but there's little Mr. X. And you're just like,
And there's always the tension of, okay, I don't know where he is, but
Mhm.
if I happen to run into him as I turn this hallway, I'm trapped. So
Yeah.
you get to these choke points where, like, please God, don't let me run into him. And you just hope that you don't, and you strategize as you move through the station. Um, there's a part in the library where I started with Claire. She was my first playthrough, and I did that whole library puzzle with Mr. X chasing me. So I would move some bookcases, run back up, wait for him to climb the ladder, run back down, move more
Mhm.
bookcases. Um, it's just overall, and just the design of the station is also really good. Where
Yeah.
you
I
get an
think I think the station design is like one of the best like levels I've ever like run around in because everything's on top of each other, and you're like, okay, I'm here. Here's this thing. I need to get to here. How do I get here? And everything like there's a lot of verticality,
yeah, there
like
you go.
and going back on itself, and it's just really cool because you can look down at one point, and be like, oh, hey, look, that's the save point. Oh,
Yeah,
there's
when
the
you're
zombie.
when you're on the third floor and you're looking all the way down, and it looks
Mhm.
completely different from that high up.
Mhm.
The station really rewards you for knowing the station first of all,
Yeah.
and being good at planning routes because you'll get an item, and you have to manage having that item in your inventory, and your inventory's small, so having that item there is significant, and you have to plan a route to get where that item goes. Basically every item is a extrapolation of a key. Basically,
Mhm.
they're just fancy like a USB stick and a sapphire and a
Some are keys.
some are literal keys. Um, and you have to figure out, okay, I finally got this key. This opens up all these exploration paths. How do I get there efficiently? Which rooms should I avoid because of enemies? And is Mr. X nearby? And you have to get all
Yeah.
that. Then
And
you
even then, you'll run into rooms. You're like, ah, a liquor spawned here. That's great. I just
Right, there's the mechanic where you can board up walls, and if you're boarding up walls, it's using one of your resources, but it means that enemies won't spawn there.
yeah.
So there's this hallway in the West Wing where there's like 4 or 5 windows, and chances are you're not going to be able to board them all up. So every time an event happens in the game, it might repopulate that hallway with zombies.
Hmm.
Very frustrating. Uh, at this point of the game, you've been introduced to Mr. X. You get to each character's individual story, where Leon gets to do stuff with Ada, and he goes into meets that reporter guy. He
Hmm.
has to fight a lot of dogs.
Fight a crocodile.
That comes a little after, but and then Clara gets to meet Sherry, and she has to deal with this dickbag officer for the
He's
police
the chief of
station.
police.
Yeah, the chief of police, and she gets a whole different section of the map than Leon does, where like
Hmm.
she gets a save point there, and Leon never gets to go there, and vice versa for Leon. Um, at that point, yeah, you go into the sewers, and so Leon gets a little section where he gets to fight a giant crocodile, and Claire gets a little section where she has to go rescue Sherry from the orphanage.
I think you control Sherry at one point.
Yeah, you control both Ada and Sherry, which
Hmm.
I really like Ada's little hacking gun. That was fun.
Hmm.
But
That was the hardest. I panicked so much on the Mr. X part of the Ada
Jesus,
playthrough.
I kind of just danced around them, so it was kind of funny. I would just there's a table in the
Well,
middle, so I just kind of move
yeah.
around them and
There was a
do
point where I
the
was like, I don't
hacking.
know where to go. I don't know where to go. Because I wasn't paying attention because I saw Mr. X coming up and I was watching him rather than watching the thing that was opening.
Hmm.
So I didn't know where to go.
I've seen other people struggle with that. Like it's a high tension spot. The sewer level itself, I'd probably put it as like my least favorite, but it's also the hardest. So I got still good memories from
I
it.
No, I think the area after that's my least favorite.
Really, I actually really
Yeah,
like. It might be my favorite area. The lab, because
yeah.
so the sewer has really tough enemies. It's exhausting on your resources and your ammo.
Mhm.
The layout has you running into enemies a lot.
You
I
got you got bitch of a boss fight.
which I know you got stuck in one of your playthroughs, right?
Yeah, I need to not restart, but like reload my Claire playthrough because I essentially like um basically at one point when like there's the point where you're like going across this pathway and you jump down, he hit me, and so I immediately dropped down to like 1 HP.
Now, to be fair, you can do that boss without getting hurt. Especially if you have ammo, you can
No,
put him
no,
down.
yeah, I agree. But like essentially like in the part where you're just supposed to be running, I ran into something by accident and he literally hit me and was just and I'm just at 1 HP now. I'm like, fuck.
Mm. Yeah, it might just be worth reloading. In these
Yeah, it is.
games, it's always good to rotate your saves for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't like the lab? I thought the lab
No,
was rad, dude.
and there's and the I don't like the lab because it's a lot more linear than the other places.
It's linear, but I feel like every wing and every room is really interesting to do.
I
Um,
think there's some interesting stuff, but it also is the one thing that makes that like it converts to when Resident Evil starts like being really like appealing to me. Um, and that's when like you get into like the really sciency and government conspiracy kind of.
Umbrella being
Yeah,
shit.
and I really like the art museum, and I like the police officer station because there's like a connectivity to it. It's like you're Leon, you're kind of thrown into this situation, and you're just a regular guy, and you're in literally a police station,
Hmm.
and like that's renovating an art museum or whatever. So there's some sort of like ground level basis there, and it feels very real when you because you there's very human elements into it, like the police officer was taking bribes from the company,
Right.
and so it's a lot more of an interesting setting to me. But then you get to like this underground area, and you're just like it's not it's just huge, and you're just like this was under the city the entire time, and no one.
Joe, the fucking Chris Redfield punches a boulder into a volcano in Resident Evil 5. Okay, it's
I'm
fine.
not saying that's good either. Like,
It's I feel like part of the identity of the series is being weird.
yeah, and like to me, like the first part of Resident Evils are always the best because it's the most.
Mm.
You don't know what's happening. You don't know where you are. You're kind of in this very alien situation. You don't know what you're going to move on to next. But then once you get into like the secret lab, it kind of demystifies everything.
I suppose. I guess I just really like the level design and the enemies you fight there, and
I
there's
thought
like
the tree enemies were just like fuck, God,
they're they
they're
that
terrifying and they're
so
awesome. But
that's what's cool is that the game gets re spooky there because I feel like
mhm,
the sewers is more action heavy section, which it raises the stakes because you're running out of ammo and health at that point.
yeah.
Um, but
I also feel like that section's a lot easier once you know what your ultimate goal is.
that's true. Which is
And so, like, oh, like, because when I was running around as Leon, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing. I just need to find doors, and then you figure out you need these chess pieces, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll go find those, and then
true.
you could, and then when
That
I went
applies to
into
the whole game though, for sure.
yeah, and part of this game too is just learning how to speed run it. That's like its kind of draw is that you just
Hmm.
get faster at going through the game.
One of the trophies of this game is you have to beat the game in like 3 hours with both characters. Um,
Yeah,
so if you're one of those achievement hunters, like they also enforce you to do the speed running and stuff.
yeah.
Um, Overall, really love this game. I'm definitely gonna do those beat playthroughs. I need a break of Mr. X for a little bit because in the beginning of a B playthrough you do not have that much to work with. So
Yeah.
I need to re-prepare my butt.
Yep. We might have to do another one where we can talk about the beat belly theories because I hear they're very different.
If they're different enough, we'll do a quick segment on them as well.
Yeah.
But something tells me that they're both going to be like a B playthrough would be very different from an A one, but both of the B ones would be similar. That's what
Yeah.
I would feel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we'll definitely do a follow up if it's necessary. But I really like this game. It's a contender for Game of the Year for me right now.
Yeah, this is
Um,
my like one of my surprise gets. I'm like, oh wow, this jumped up there. In terms of games I really enjoyed this year.
for sure. Yeah, Capcom's fucking slaying it. They've
Yeah,
already
man.
announced Resident Evil 3 remake. They're working on it.
Are are they? Did they announce that?
Yes.
When?
It was announced not too long ago. I can source you later.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot. I also played Resident Evil 1 Remake, which is also really good. So, yeah, I'm into Resident Evil now. I'm looking forward to 4
Congrats.
getting on the Switch, so I can finally play that. And 3 getting the remake,
Mhm.
and 8 whenever that comes out.
Anyways,
Anyways, yeah, we did it.
Resident Evil 2 remake. Um, an unfortunate 5 out of 5 because I feel like I give those out every week.
Uh, it's so good. Yeah, I think I have to as well. I gotta
The
give
other
it the
thing about
fiver.
it too is that I believe Resident Evil 2 stuck with the Resident Evil 1 formula of having like the fixed camera angles.
Yes, and they did a really good job at changing that. One last thing I
Mhm.
wanted to bring up, yeah, is that in this game you're rewarded for being slow and aiming, because the longer you aim, the higher your crit chances are.
Mhm.
So in a way, it kind of tries to replicate how you do combat in those games, and it uses this 3D environment to just change up the spooks, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
good game, great game.